Texans re-sign one of their own. Why is the D-line the way it is? Let's try to make sense of why it is the way it is. Let's look at the investments of the roster, and let's take some stuff that happened around the league and use it as a lesson about a very, very important position. Let's see.
Hey, locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We
It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. We got some news to get into. We're going to hear from some rookies in 2 days. We're going to hear from DeMeco Ryans as well, and we're going to get this camera situation fixed and focused. The Texans make a move today. I guess you can consider it a move. It's definitely a move, but the D-line. We wondered if they would go D-line in the draft early. We know DeMeco Ryans likes his defense. He likes to rotate D linemen. And now someone that was on the roster last year, Foley Fatukasi, going to be back with the team. The D-line hashtag run it back season is going on, and Foley Fatukasi is back. We also have some news around the league that may impact the Texans, perhaps, or it can just be a lesson for what we've seen the last couple of weeks from the Texans when it comes to a very important position. How does it impact them? Could it impact them more than potentially it did, even when it was closer within their vicinity? We'll get into that. Also, the schedule drops in a week. I got a confession. I got to confess about something to do with the schedule and maybe a recommendation that you might want to take up. So we got a pretty good one today. Never a slow news day around here, but let's get into this Fatukasi thing. You look at the Texans D-line room right now, and it's very familiar to what we've seen the entire time with DeMeco Ryans. If you just take the 2-year body of work that DeMeco Ryans has had and guys that have made plays on the D-line, it looks very familiar. It looks very similar. It's almost a blend of everything. They're bringing back Mario Edwards Jr., who was a pleasant surprise last year. Don't know how he'll be used, but they're bringing him back. Tim Settle obviously signed the 2-year deal. He had a hot start last year, hot little stretch before kind of wearing out. And then you have Sheldon Rankins, who was on the team 2 years ago, big part of the culture building that DeMeco Ryans speaks of, and Kurt Heinisch, and sprinkle in some other guys from last year, and you have the D-line room. And when you invest the D-line, or when you break down the investments of the D-line with the Texans, and you compare it to other positions, it's clearly at the bottom. Edge, they have a crap ton invested. Multiple premium picks for Will Anderson. Daniil Hunter is the highest paid free agent that they've ever signed. They gave him an extension after that contract that made him one of the 3 highest paid annual edge guys in the league. They used a number 3 overall pick on Derek Stingley, made him the highest paid corner in the league. They used a 2nd-round pick on Kamari Lassiter, so there's your corner investment. Also traded up for Jalen Smith, drafted him sooner than a lot of people thought he would go in the 3rd round. The safety position, Kalen Bullock was a day 2 pick. They traded for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Jimmy Ward got an extension. They also made Jalen Petrie the highest paid nickel safety in the league. So they've invested there. Linebacker, 2nd-round pick on Christian Harris a few years back. Azeez Al-Shire, nicely paid linebacker. And they've invested a lot on the defense. On the D-line, it's been kick the tires on guys in free agency, bring in vets, and just ask them to do what DeMeco Ryans wants them to do. And then on the offense, we've seen what they've invested at wide receiver. Couple of picks in the draft, day twos. Nico Collins got his bag. Christian Kirk, they traded for, they paid. Dalton Schultz doesn't play like it, but he's a very high-paid offensive lineman. CJ Stroud, number 2 pick. And then the offensive line, not the return on investment, but the investment's been there. I'm bringing this up because I'm not saying that the Texans have some sort of problem and they neglect the offensive line or the defensive line, the interior defensive line. I'm not saying that. Matter of fact, I think when the surroundings are such that we just laid out, I don't think they're asked to do a lot. But I also don't think it's like some sort of philosophical thing. I think it's kind of an adjustment in making the best of what you got. I think there will be a day, and I think it could be very soon, where when DeMeco Ryans has the opportunity to perhaps draft a defensive lineman with a premium pick, whether that be in the first round, second round, maybe one of those second round picks they have next year, I think he's open to it. You just can only do so much with the investments you have. But I don't think this is like some sort of philosophical thing. Furthermore, I think that they do a good job of getting as much as they possibly can from guys on that side of the rock. And at that position, quite frankly, Tim Settle probably had the best year of his career last year. Mario Edwards Jr., nobody expected that. Kurt Hinish is still hung around. Now, are there times where teams are able to run on him? Yeah, but I don't think it's always just about the D line. But if you do look at the position, it is the position with the least amount of upside. You don't see any long-term pieces on the D line. We just basically went through the roster. There's potential long-term pieces. A lot of question marks at offensive line. But I mean, some of these guys damn sure better be long-term pieces. I mean, you've invested decently. You've drafted tackles in the second round the last 2 years. So you kind of hope that. But on the D-line, they just kind of get guys that they trust. And those guys' job is going to be easier. And they're probably going to be asked to do a little bit less than most would, just because of the surroundings. But I don't think it's philosophical. I think their backup running back position that's maybe philosophical, and I don't think they value the backup running back as much as they should. But I think the interior D-line will be fine. They did, though, I do think it should be mentioned, they did try to acquire Eric Armstead last year, and that kind of fell through, and then they ended up bringing Tim Settle, and they ended up making the Diggs trade after. So that's just kind of where they're at. But the least amount of upside on the roster as far as long-term is definitely the interior D-line. Even the backup edge guys, I mean, there's a lot of intrigue in what they can do. And quite frankly, I don't think they're done with looking at guys on the D-line. I think that's an area that they're never, ever going to ignore. I think it's going to be one of the first places that they look when it comes to bringing in guys. So I don't think they're done with that, which brings me to this question. If D-line has the least amount of upside, which position has the most upside? And let me just define upside as the potential to take a massive jump in quality of play in 2025 compared to 2024, and the potential to be a quality long-term piece. Which position group? And we're separating the D linemen from DT to edge guys. Which position do you feel has the most upside? Biggest jump from the previous year to 2025 and potential long-term pieces? Put that in the chat. Speaking of the chat, let's go to the super chat. Austin Jack in the building per usual. You ain't never hate. Swarm. Good evening to you, my friend. Good evening to everyone else in the chat. Team player says quarterback. I don't think quarterback really counts, but I do. I mean, I would not dismiss CJ Stroud as being big. Now, if you're talking about taking the big leap, then yeah, that could happen. I always put CJ on like a different island, but you are right. And it's going to be interesting to see what the OC has to do with that and what the other positions around him, what their contributions are. Evan says safety. I think safety is interesting. We got to see, what Kalen Bullock looks like. Last year was fantastic. Saw a lot of good things from him. Is it going to be another version of Jalen Petrie where you see a good rookie season and a fall off? I would say probably not, because it was different systems. With Petrie, but safety with Bullock, Reed, safety's intriguing, and then CJ Gardner-Johnson. Who knows what you're going to get there? Definitely intrigue at safety. Wide receiver, I think you can put it in the discussion. How much better can Nico really get? If you just get the same Nico, but perhaps more games, then that's as good as you need. Christian Kirk, is he a long-term piece? Who knows? But if Christian Kirk plays like he did a few years back, or even as well as he did his first year at Jacksonville, you're in good shape there when it comes to wide receiver. And the jump in production could go way up. You have two young guys that you feel really good about, two of the top 6-7 players in the draft at their position. So wide receiver, I think that belongs on the list as well. I would say corner should be up there too. I would say you should probably put corner up there as well. I think that corner is, and this is kind of scary to think about, but the case for corner is I think Kamari Lassiter can be a fringe Pro Bowl type of cornerback. And as good as Derek Stingley is, and we're talking about the highest paid corner in the league, and I would say one of the 3 best in the league, and I might be selling him short by saying that. I think he can get better. And I think he's built like that to get better. There's not going to be any fat and happy Derek Stingley. He was working out when he found out he was going to get his contract. So if you think about that and you think about Derek Stingley getting even better and Kamari Lassiter being a fringe Pro Bowl guy, that's extreme upside. That's about as good as it gets. I mean, you're talking about, it's not crazy to say. I think a lot of times things are said in the off season, and sometimes stuff gets kind of out of control and you get ahead of yourself. But I mean, this being the best cornerback duo in the league is not far-fetched at all. And I think both of those guys, when you talk about the stuff that's in front of them, and a corner's best friend is a D-line that can get after the quarterback. And I think with those edge guys, they're going to get after the quarterback. So I think that arrow is high. Speaking of those edge guys, Will Anderson's going to be a better player this year. I think we can all agree with that. What is Danielle Hunter going to be? If he can just be the exact same as he was last year, that's serious upside. On the chat, Primetime V, he says that linebacker. I mean, we still haven't seen Christian Harris. I mean, does the excitement for Christian Harris just go away? I mean, the answer may be yes. They've kind of changed the way that they play defense. Maybe. We don't know. We haven't seen a healthy Christian Harris in like a linebacking core that DeMeco Ryans completely feels comfortable playing with 3 traditional backers out there. But Christian Harris is going to be back. And last year at this time, we were saying, okay, this guy's going to be the breakout player. He didn't play, but he's healthy now. He's in a contract year. So does the excitement for Christian Harris just die? Is it gone? Are we over the Christian Harris thing? Or does that still exist? I think that's an interesting question. The linebacker. Now, how much better are you going to get from Azeez? I think Azeez could be on arrow pointing down watch. I think Azeez was good last year. How good do you anticipate him being this year? Now, the good news is if you use him right, maybe you're less reliant on him. Maybe I'm still reacting to the fact they didn't have a nickel and he was out there having to having to cover. His job might be easy too, but how much of a long-term piece is Azeez? I don't know. Did they churn the roster after this year? Is Azeez back again? Check that out. Henry To'oTo'o, we saw him last year. This Henry To'oTo'o, I think he's going to be a solid player on this team for at least the next couple of years. How high is the ceiling for Henry To'oTo'o, and how much do we see from Henry To'oTo'o it's a big ass if Christian Harris is good to go? Keep an eye on that. Tight end, probably in the discussion with tackle, to be honest. Dalton Schultz, you want him to be serviceable. Cade Stover could be really good. How good? Don't know. Probably more of a really, really good complementary tight end in a perfect world. We'll see what Lachey can do if he makes any noise. And Brevin Jordan, I think the legend of Brevin Jordan kind of grew because of how poor that position performed last season and how bad it was and how really just disgusting the overall production of the tight end position was. Arts by Beware says she's hoping to see more of Christian Harris. Yeah, you and me both. I mean, I think DeMeco Ryans wants to see him. I think he has kind of a soft spot for Christian Harris. And I would anticipate that we're definitely going to see more of Christian Harris than we saw last year. How much? And how much do they use him, especially with the investment and the commitment to playing defense a certain way with Petrie, and maybe with Reed, and maybe with Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward got a shout out from DeMeco Ryan. It's not a shout out. I asked him. Shout outs are usually unsolicited. But Jimmy Ward's going to be a piece too. So maybe they're just incredibly committed to playing that style of defense where they have the nickel back out, where quite frankly, if you're rotating Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward at that nickel position, I think that's incredible. That's an incredible duo if you're using both of them and then just using Jimmy Ward accordingly. I think that's an incredible combo. And some people don't want Jimmy Ward on this team. They've already paid for it. You know how sometimes when you pay for something and maybe you want to send it back and they say, well, you already paid for it, so you got to make do with it at the table. That's what Jimmy Ward is right now. A lot of people didn't want to give out that extension, but it is what it is. That's just where they're at with Jimmy. But yeah, Christian Harris, it's interesting. Getting a lot of hype and didn't see it. Azeez, Harris, To'oTo'o all healthy together. Watch out. Are they going to play that? How often are they going to play that? I'm sure there'll definitely be a mix of it, but how often do they play that? What is their defense going to look like? And of course, can Jimmy Ward stay on the field? I mean, if it's already accepted and he's accepting that, you're going to be a super utility guy, and that's just kind of where we're at, then I don't see why he wouldn't accept that role. Jimmy Ward's the ultimate team player. Jimmy Ward has gone to battle with DeMeco Ryans more than anyone in this world. I don't know too many people that have been a part of the evolutions of DeMeco Ryans' football life more than Jimmy Ward. And I don't know too many guys that you would more want to be mentoring these young guys than Jimmy Ward. We've already seen it. Is it frustrating when he gets hurt? Sure. Does he get burned a little bit at safety? Yes. But as far as being a Swiss Army knife, it's great. It's bad on the offensive line. I think versatility around here. And it is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans digital content. Shout out to all the people. Reminder, like the damn video. Go check out the 4-part series on who these rookies are. And we'll also get our first look at them on Friday. And be sure to watch and listen to the most popular daily Texans live stream with the two best in the game, the Digital Kings, myself and Cody Stutes at SNL. Go ahead and subscribe to that channel as well, SNL Texans Talk. You can also do that on all podcast platforms. But on the offensive line, like when we hear about versatility, you kind of roll your eyes. And the reason that you roll your eyes is because they preach versatility with guys who aren't good at starting anywhere. And it's like, okay, well, this guy sucks at right tackle. So what if he can go move to guard? Who cares? He's not a quality starter anywhere. He's not good anywhere. Like, this guy can play center and guard. Oh, that's awesome. So he can basically get treated like a blocking sled, either to the front right of the quarterback or with the quarterback's hands under his nuts. That's awesome. No one cares about that type of versatility. But when you have versatility of someone who is not going to be expected to start like Jimmy Ward, who's done all these things at a decent level. The cornerback thing didn't go well early on in his career. Nickel, he was one of the best in the league, and he's been a good safety. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Is it ideal for Jimmy Ward to be your full-time safety? On this team, at times it has been, but moving forward, probably not. But if you have that type of versatility as a backup player, it works perfectly. We saw it last year. The seconds, minutes, whatever, after Jalen Petrie got hurt, what did Jimmy Ward do when he went back inside at nickel? He had a pick six. They got other guys that can do it. If you can keep that position fresh, we always look at the edge guys, and DeMeco Ryans talks about rotating guys on the edge. And, every once in a while you'll look up and you'll see, they've talked a lot about DeMeco Autry and what he can do. We saw glimpses of that last year. We've seen Derek Barnett do it. We've seen them rotate when Tim Settle was rotating. We see him do that. Maybe they start doing that at nickel, and maybe they start doing it at linebacker, because the options are crazy. And DeMeco Ryans has already proven that he can do it. We don't know what the hell they're going to do on offense. We don't know what that rotation is going to look like. We don't know if they're going to maximize those guys. We have no idea. So I think it's interesting to see what Jimmy Ward does and how he handles his business on that, and how these rookies kind of blend into it. Another mention of upside is O-line. Maybe addition by subtraction. Maybe. I don't have the clear vision of the offensive line, what it's going to look like. Ideally, you want one of these young tackles to start. We don't know what Cam Robinson's going to look like. I'm keeping a close eye on that. I keep bringing it up. I'm telling you, I'm not going to put him on the Matt Khalil, Shaq Mason, this guy, Justin Britt, this guy's watch list, but I'm watching very closely. Cam Robinson, to see what he looks like, especially compared to these young guys. On the interior, I guess if you're talking upside, like who would have the most upside? Jared Patterson, you kind of just see, you see what you get. Maybe Jared Patterson masters this system. I think it's possible. I don't think too many guys, like I think if you told me that all these guys are trying to figure out this system and what it's about, I don't think too many are going to be ahead of Jared Patterson. Although there's some guys who've ran the system according to Nick Cacerio, whatever the hell the system is, but there's not going to be too many guys ahead of Jared Patterson in that. So maybe that helps him out, kind of puts him on equal ground. Maybe he tries to establish himself as one of the leaders. I wouldn't sleep on Jared Patterson. Juice Scruggs, I have no idea. I don't know what to make of Juice Scruggs, to be honest with you. He's on Ross Blacklock watch list right now. It's been a free pass for Juice Scruggs because of his surroundings. I mean, if this were a competent offensive line, and let's say Kenyon Green were just a serviceable player, and Titus Howard looked like a guy who might not be a top 5 right tackle, which is what he was paid, but he's solid, we would be talking about Juice Scruggs a lot more than we do. I don't know if Juice Scruggs is going to make this team or not. I would think so. I would hope so. Maybe the change of scenery is great for him. Maybe these guys see that there's a new offensive line coach, there's a new coordinator, and they need to get their shit together. But to go back to the conversation about upside and what these guys, like the offensive line, I see upside with the tackles. And then other than that, your guess is as good as mine. I would just settle for solid on the offensive line at this point. But if those two young tackles can play at a decent level, and that's about as good as it gets. The corners, the previously mentioned edge guys, even the linebackers, the safeties, the wide receivers. Sky's the limit. A lot of potential excitement. On the offensive line, they keep preaching that same C word all offseason, competition. I'm kind of on those same lines, but you know what I want on the offensive line? Competition's cool. Competition means that you have a shitty setup at offensive line. They're not talking about competition at all those places that we just glorified. I'm along the same lines. I'm glad there is competition. And I'm glad you're not just handing Juice Scruggs the starting center spot or Titus Howard a starting spot. I'm fine with that. So I'm cool with the competition, but my word, when it comes to what I expect from this offensive line, the arrow is not pointing very high. It's competence. Competence. Not greatness, competence. We ain't here talking about competence. Not greatness, just competence. That's what I would like to see from this offensive line. Competition's great. We can see that too. And then hopefully by the time you sort through that competition, we got some competence. Ladarius Henderson comeback season for the win. I don't know if Ladarius Henderson is even a factor on this thing. I saw Cacerio was asked about it. I thought it was a Shedeur Sanders type of prank call that he was asked about Ladarius Henderson. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of pleasant surprise. I saw Kay Adams ask Cacerio about it. I thought it was a prank call. I thought he was getting trolled. So I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from, but okay. Cacerio seemed to think it was funny if you kind of read between the lines. I thought it was funny. He thought, well, must be some Michigan fans there. You heard him say that. And then he said, why don't we talk about golf? Read between the lines on that. Like, I don't know where that was a good prank. If it was a prank, I think it was a good prank. But yeah, we'll see what happens with him and how that looks. But he's gonna, I mean, it's the right place. If you're trying to make an offensive line, you're in the right place. I will say that. There's not a better offensive line to be a part of. And that's the other thing for Fatukasi that I think probably factors into to his re-signing with the Texans. I don't think there was probably a ton of interest with Fatukasi. But let's just be serious. Like, if you're a free agent and let's say all money is the same, and let's say even the quality of team is the same. Let's say the quality of team is the same, and let's say that all the money is the same. This is a good D line, and this is a good offensive line to be in the mix of. If you're trying to make an NFL roster, you're trying to get some run, and you're trying to play. So from a player's perspective, there's a lot of opportunity there for them. And then we'll see what these guys look like when it comes to when they walk into the field. People were saying that Ladarius Henderson had a body transformation. Okay, he also had 2 foot surgeries and was a day 3 pick. Like, I would hope so. What else has he done besides workout? I would hope so. But, we're not talking about Cade Stover, who went out there and was a rotational player. We're not talking about Blake Fisher, who went out there and started some games at tackle. 2 guys whose roster spots are guaranteed. We're not talking about Derek Stingley from year 1 to year 2. Yeah, I would hope that he had a body transformation. They're always going to glorify. Last year, he glorified Hill for what he did when he was injured. I mean, injured guys should have body transformations. But I don't even know if this guy was going to make the team last year. It's not like they drafted him in the 1st or 2nd round and said, okay, this guy's going to make the squad. But yeah, he's always going to praise guys in the offseason. We'll see what it looks like. Maybe there's some sort of surprise, and maybe the joke's on me. I wouldn't bet on it. And I damn sure don't think that's something that he expected to be asked about nationally. He's always going to praise some stuff locally, but he damn sure did not expect to be that. But hey, the more the merrier when it comes to the offensive line. My gosh, there's no starter that you can really plug in unless you want to plug in Cam Robinson. So the more the merrier when it comes to the bodies there. News around the NFL, localizing it here in the locker room. So I think the wide receiver position is really interesting, and we talked about this before the draft, where there's some positions that you can address in free agency, and there's some positions where, man, it's just impossible. And I think wide receiver is one of those areas where in free agency, it's damn near impossible. And I think that's why you see every offseason, you see a wide receiver get traded, and you see him, regardless of who the wide receiver is, even if it's someone like Stephon Diggs that has question marks and is on the other side of 30, you see decent return for Stephon Diggs. You see decent return for George Pickens, who we'll get to in a second. Third round pick for a guy who was drafted in the second round that they're not going to keep. That's not terrible return by the Pittsburgh Steelers. You saw the Metcalf trade that the Steelers made. It's impossible in free agency to find top-notch receivers. There's probably some exceptions that y'all will throw out, but for the most part, when these wide receivers get paid, and when we see them get this bread, like most of the time, those guys end up on the market in the next year or two. And that's a lot of positions, but the place to find receivers is in the draft. And that's why we saw the Texans via trade or via in the draft. You can find guys every once in a while. Maybe y'all have some examples in the chat, but Gabe Davis signed a hell of a deal in Jacksonville. Ended up leaving Buffalo, and he only lasted 1 year. Now, they also did draft Travis Hunter, who many, including myself, believe was the best wide receiver in the draft. But Calvin Ridley 2 years ago, one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL, like who thought that was a good deal by the Tennessee Titans? When wide receivers hit the market, typically they get overpaid because the really good ones get franchise tagged. The Cincinnati Bengals, they franchise tagged T. Higgins even when they had Jamar Chase. You don't let these guys hit the market. And that's why a lot of times you're in no man's land if you don't have wide receivers. And you end up having to overpay a Calvin Ridley. Patriots gave Stephon Diggs pretty much a 1 year deal. It's essentially a 1 year deal for Stephon Diggs. And that's actually pretty expensive for what Stephon Diggs is, but they didn't have a lot of options. That's expensive for what he is at this point. It's basically the contract that he voided. Good on him for getting that back. But when you sign these guys in free agency, you overpay. And the Gabe Davis era in Jacksonville is done, which I would think that he ends up in Buffalo. Maybe I'm wrong. I know that they've signed a couple of receivers, but I would think that he ends up back in Buffalo. I don't think they were just one receiver away. But I also, if I'm not mistaken, I kind of thought it went weird for him when he left. Kind of felt like he got into it with fans or whatever and ended up leaving. And he was injured in Jacksonville last year. But as soon as I saw the Gabe Davis thing, I just automatically thought, okay, well, he's going back to Buffalo. And we'll see where he ends up. But that's a wild thing, that wide receiver position. We got the Ladarius Henderson thing again. My goodness. Sideline Sarah says it was interesting how Nick was asked about Blake Fisher on Sports Radio 610 this morning and randomly pivoted to complimenting, and he brought up Ladarius Henderson. Don't know. Like, it was, the people are saying it was about body transformation or something. I'm assuming he was on with Sean and Seth. Did anyone aggregate it or anything like that? I'll look this up and bring it up in the chat so I can get hip to it. I didn't know that he was on 6'10". I like Sean and Seth though. I think they actually know the squad, follow the squad. It's good. It's good information. I don't see if anyone aggregated it or not. The only thing that I'm seeing is that he said that he reiterated that Ursary is a tackle. He said he's a tackle until he's not. Yeah, I didn't. Let's see what else Cacerio explains. He mentions how future picks are discounted. He was asked about Titus Howard. Now he's saying that he's versatile. Explains the rationale between trading up for Woody Marks. Damn, they actually got some good stuff from him. Okay, here's the Henderson. Shout out to Mr. Optimistic for aggregating it all. I'll pull it up so that I can get hip to this like y'all did. I did not know he was on 6'10". So Sean and Seth, really all you need if you really want to like be hip to the Texans there. But let's hear what he said on 6'10" on Pain and Pendergast, 6 to 10 Monday through Friday.
Nick, we sort of have an unofficial award on this show at the beginning of training camp. We gave it to Will Anderson last year, the Will Anderson body type change trophy that we give out. You know, who put on the most good weight room weight in the offseason, that kind of thing. My hope and prediction for this year is that trophy goes to Blake Fisher. How is Blake's offseason going, and how are you feeling about him going into year two?
Can we give it to DeMeco? I mean,
yeah, dude,
seen him in the weight room lately.
He looks like he's put on some good weight room weight also. DeMeco.
He would. I said this the other day. He would definitely beat my ass. No, he's good. Blake.
Yeah, no kidding.
Blake looks good. He's been here. I'll give you two other players actually. So Ladarius Henderson has actually sort of reshaped his body. I think nobody's worked harder than LD. And I know he lost his whole year last year because he was dealing with the foot injuries, but I think he's lost, 15 to 20 pounds of like body fat. And he wasn't like a heavy kid to begin with. It was just, he wasn't able to do a lot. But I would say like the level of commitment and focus that he's shown, honest to God, like it's a tremendous accomplishment. And I would say just looking at Kamari, like he looks physically in his upper body a little bigger, a little thicker. That's what I'd say off-season program is for. And if you have an opportunity, you have it as a player, you have an opportunity from February to April to really make some progress. In the end, this all goes back to work. What's your level of commitment? How committed are you to being a good football player? What's your level of want to? And there's no substitute for hard work. Not to like oversimplify it. This goes back to like the blockout example. It goes back to hard work, discipline, consistent, focused work. And I would say those are some players at this point that have shown that. We have a number of players that have done that. I think phase one, in the voluntary program, we had 93, 94, 95% of the team that was here. So the most important thing is if you want to improve as a football player, how do you get better at football? You focus on your work and your individual development. And this is just really a starting point. It's only May. You still have May, June, over the summer. Like those 4 to 6 weeks are vitally important. So,
okay. And again, Payne and Pendergast, Mr. Optimistic, always on the scene with the aggregation there. So, yeah, it was a body transformation question. It wasn't really much of it wasn't like he was saying that he looks at Henderson's offense fine. I think Henderson's going to be one of their favorite guys. I think they like seeing guys work out at the facility when they're injured. I think that the reason when I knew that Stephon Diggs was likely not going to be a Texan was when he was not working out at the facility. When we only saw him twice after he got hurt. That's just me. And then you listen to what they say, and they praise guys who are there. They praised Jalen Petrie about it. Derek Stingley praised Nico Collins. It seems like San Francisco kind of has that same mindset. They're cut from the same cloth. And they like that. So, okay. So it was a body type transformation, type of thing. The Blake Fisher thing, I wouldn't read too much into it. But we'll see what Blake Fisher's made of. I mean, let's just be completely honest about it. I think they like Blake Fisher. I think Blake Fisher's a good dude. I think he might have been a little bit overwhelmed last year. Always seemed to be studying his playbook. They trusted him immediately to be the swing tackle. But I mean, right now he might be in a competition with another guy that they drafted in the second round. And let's be honest, if they felt like Blake Fisher was going to be an awesome player, do they draft another tackle? Maybe. I mean, because Cam Robinson's not like a long-term thing. And the reason they drafted Blake Fisher in the first place, it wasn't like an immediate thing, but we'll see what Blake Fisher looks like and where he's at. And we'll see. They've said that Ursay's a tackle. Is he a left tackle or is he a right tackle? Again, I'm not I know that if you follow the money, and I don't think it's a bad decision either way. I'm not convinced that Cam Robinson is going to look light years better than than your rookie or your second year guy. That's my it's not a called shot. It's just a watch. And this has become something that I have very much observed throughout the years at camp. It's old ass offensive linemen on the back end of their careers. You can tell like that when they're done. When they're done, when their days are numbered. And we'll see what Cam Robinson looks like. I don't want to write him off, but I do want to, I'm not just going to chalk him in and say that's a for sure starter. We talk about it's, free agency when it comes to wide receivers, kind of the same with offensive linemen. Like Cam Robinson, you were able to get Cam Robinson and he was out there. If Cam Robinson were a really, really good left tackle, his ass is not on the market. And if he's a really good left tackle, he's not signing a 1 year, whatever he ended up signing. Left tackles are not cheap. Now, you might luck into it and find you a stopgap left tackle, but just because a guy gets upwards of 8 figures doesn't mean he's for sure your starting left tackle. And the examples I always use are Matt Khalil. And I know Matt Khalil had a lot of injuries. But Matt Khalil, Justin Britt, Shaq Mason, those are the examples. I'm trying to think if there was anyone else. But those are the examples of guys where you can immediately tell, okay, these guys are trouble. These guys don't have it anymore. And you can tell. So we'll see what Cam Robinson looks like. But I think just chalking it down as, okay, Cam Robinson's going to be good I think that's kind of dangerous. Now, it's probably unfair to compare him to Khalil, who was coming off those injuries, and Justin Britt, who had those injuries, and Shaq, who was just out of shape and just probably kind of fool's gold the year before. But I'm not just chalking it down to Cam Robinson, and we'll see what Fisher's got. I'm interested to see what Fisher has got. But I think he's been in the building. I don't think he hasn't been in the building. They do value that, though. That was that awkward moment with Will Anderson the other day about EJ Speed. I think my theory was he must not be in the building, and it's just kind of weird. And they don't know the rules or anything like that. So there's that. Preston on Z Soup.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
What's good? Everything's good, my man. What's good with you? A little bit of rain, a little bit of hoops, and a hell of a lot of football because the season don't end. But yeah, I think Cacerio is always going to have his favorites. And the other thing that I've noticed about Nick Cacerio, and I think Will Anderson's kind of the exception and some of the other guys, but he's started the BOB bit where he's praising guys like on the back end of the roster that just work hard. Remember when Bill O'Brien traded DeAndre Hopkins? He's like, if you look at what we've done with guys like Buddy Howell and Keon Crossan, like our record kind of speaks for itself. It's like Cacerio before day 2 when he's sitting there talking about Toe and stuff. It's like, man, go find me another Kamari Lassiter or Nico Collins or Kalen Bullock or something like that. I don't need to hear about Toe before day 2. but he also kind of minimized the draft. So yeah, I think they'll like that. I'm intrigued by Cam Robinson. I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying I want to see what it looks like. And I actually thought it was good. I think Silent Sarah was the one. Yeah, she's the one who put up the Reddit post about him. That was a good ass find, by the way, of the Vikings fan that went in depth on Cam Robinson. I actually used that when he was signed. I thought that was badass find and a badass resource of information. So there was that. A guy that the Texans, it feels like, and maybe this is kind of the they were a little too close to the situation, and maybe this isn't like a common talking point, but it feels like George Pickens has kind of been spoken about for a while when it comes to the Texans. And maybe this is because I'm kind of a draft nerd, but I remember when they had that pick and they ended up using it on Mechie, that George Pickens was perhaps the most popular topic. Now, he obviously slid for a reason, but there was a lot of talk about George Pickens then, and then he goes to Pittsburgh and he does what he did, and now he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy. So we'll see what that looks like. So just kind of the evolution of George Pickens being on the radar, him doing what he did in Pittsburgh. It was highs and lows. It didn't like bottom out or anything like that. It wasn't like they just punted on him like they did Deontay Johnson. But I do think, like, if as we're looking at Jaden Higgins and we're looking at Noel and we're talking about wide receivers and trying to find guys to complement Nico, like, if you can get out of your day 2 wide receivers what the Steelers got out of George Pickens, and it was kind of a quarterback roller coaster for him, I think the pick is validated. Is it ideal? No, but the pick is validated, and you end up getting the 3rd round pick. And I just think it's interesting that what some would consider kind of a failed experiment, they have something to show for it. And quite frankly, they got some good football and some good times from George Pickens. So that's if that's a failed experiment and that's a failed draft pick, then I think every team would sign up for that. I mean, we've seen what the few years have been like with Mechie, and obviously he lost the 1 year. But what Pittsburgh got out of George Pickens, the fact that they never really invested in him and they got what they did, I think that's impressive. The other thing about that, if we're localizing it, is I don't know how this makes you feel if you're a Texans fan, but I mean, it's pretty evident that when we're talking about that second tier and we're talking about those teams that are in that tier with the Texans that are looking up at the Kansas Cities and the Buffaloes, like, Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. We've known this forever. Like, I said this going back to when he did his interview. He's known he's going to Pittsburgh. They've known he's going to Pittsburgh. They just didn't want to do it before the draft because they didn't want distractions. But it's been not common that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to bring in Aaron Rodgers the second that he ended up not going with the Jets. Like, anyone, if anyone tries to sell that, and they're probably going to sell it, and Aaron Rodgers is going to go up there and be like, yeah, I just thought about my life, and, I thought about, football and, what the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is. Shut the fuck up. Like, he's been going to the Pittsburgh Steelers from the jump. From the jump, he's been going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's why they let Justin Fields go. That's why they let Russell Wilson go. That's why they didn't really draft a quarterback. That's why he's throwing with DK Metcalf. That's why there's been like some subtle talk from players on the team. So we can do this like Brett Favre kumbaya drama that we had back in the day. And I'm sure this will be eaten up, but it's just hilarious to see that there's like conversation where it's like, yeah, and if Aaron Rodgers is, and then they just put as a footnote, oh, by the way, he's working out with DK Metcalf. For what? For what? Like, what are you working out with DK Metcalf for? You work out with anybody. Got a lot of friends. You're working out with DK Metcalf, really? Oh, Pittsburgh just let their 2 starting quarterbacks go, really? Okay. Like, let's just be serious. So the Texans, I say all that to say, not to rant about Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think it's the worst thing for the Steelers to do to see what it looks like, especially with the surrounding they got. But Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the Steelers. Period, point blank, end of story. He's going to be on the Steelers. And I don't know how that makes you feel. I don't know if that makes you think that Pittsburgh is worse when it comes to being on that tier. I don't know if that makes you feel better, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. And he's going to be in Pittsburgh. So there you go. Spoiler alert. Let's not act too surprised by it. And if he doesn't, he's even more of a weirdo than some people think he is. I like the guy. But he's even more of a weirdo than they thought because you're working out with DK Metcalf for no reason. Come on. I mean, let's just be serious. I mean, if they want to play it up, go ahead. He's going to be there. He's going to be at training camp. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Period, point blank, end of story. So you talk about the other teams that the Texans are looking at in the tier. Again, I put Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore up here. And then everyone else is looking up. Cincinnati, they've kind of addressed the defense. Be interesting to see what that looks like. Pittsburgh, we know what they're going to bring. We know what Mike Tomlin's about. They're going to have Aaron Rodgers. What's that going to look like? They had a DK Metcalf. Jacksonville, I know that they had a bad year last year. They kind of bottomed out. Be interesting to see what they're about. And if Brian Thomas takes that next step, what Travis Hunter looks like and what their new coach looks like. I don't mention anyone else in the AFC South. And then we got Denver. Bo Nix had a good first year. Sean Payton's starting to try to fill in some pieces. What do they look like? And then the Chargers, who the Texans tapped the brakes off of in the playoffs. So that's really where we're at. But the Aaron Rodgers thing, I mean, that's blatantly obvious. They said that with a straight face. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. What we do know, Ian Rappaport was on he was on Inside the NFL. We don't know. Wait, let me get down here. Gotta be shorter. Rappaport. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play, but what we do know is that he is working out with DK Metcalf. Okay. That's a hell of a coincidence. I don't even think those people live in the same spot. Although I don't know where Rodgers lives or DK. Very interesting to see what that looks like. There. So the D-line depth, I don't think it's a philosophy. I think it's just based on how the investments have lined up. The Pickens thing, we hardly knew you. John Mechie, don't know what's going to happen with him. Aaron Rodgers, you're playing football. And we got the schedule a week from today. Get a little schedule action, a little schedule layout, which I'm excited for. I always like the schedule. I will say the Texans are going to be praying. I think every time DeMeco drops to his knees since the end of the season, he is praying for a couple of things. One prayer has already been answered. They're not going to be in the Hall of Fame game again. They hated that. He's also going to pray for, he won't admit this, less primetime games, or at least spread out the primetime games. Going to pray for that. And he's also going to pray for an earlier bye week. They did not like that late bye week. Some looked at it and said, okay, well, this might be favorable. They did not look at it that way. And there'll always be that hellacious 10-day stretch. But we'll react to the schedule here on the night stream. And we'll also have a live reaction on SNL. The kings of the stream. We got you covered with the schedule, which I love. Some people are like, oh, you already know who you're going to play. So when do you play him? What does it look like? You start taking a closer look at the storylines. And it matters. The layout of the schedule matters. There's favorable stretches. There's unfavorable stretches. Now, they're always kind of similar. But there's that. And maybe the Texans will get less primetime games. Do y'all prefer Sunday at noon? I kind of prefer Sunday at noon. I kind of like the routine. I like the occasional Monday nighter. Sunday night's cool. Thursday sucks. Thursday's kind of lame. because that weekend's kind of no man's land. Although you can kind of chill, you don't have to go to the stadium. I'm talking myself into it. The practice week's a little bit shorter. Yeah, there's good. I'm gonna look on the bright side of everything. Saturdays suck. The Netflix games suck. But give me a good Sunday at noon, and I'm good with it. 3:30 is okay, but I would rather have the noon. I'd rather get up, get at it, watch the game, cover the game, drive back, stream the post, and then watch the Sunday night game. I'm a fan of the Sunday at noon. Sunday at noon for me. The best prime time is Monday night's good now that they got Troy and Joe. ESPN started kind of taking it serious, like the actual broadcast. So Monday night's not bad. I like Monday a lot. Sunday night's tough to beat. Some people hate Chris Collinsworth. I like Chris Collinsworth. I think Chris Collinsworth is nice. But Troy and Joe, hard to top, man. They just do a good job. Do a good job breaking it down. Used to be unquestioned Monday. Now there's different stuff. Al Michaels on Thursday. What are we doing? What are we doing? Let's be serious. I mean, what's going on? This is just a bit at this point. But I love it. Primetime says he doesn't like Sunday night because he has to. So you don't watch Sunday night football? What do you mean? You're not staying up every night watching Sunday night football? What the hell's wrong with you? You casual? Man, you're staying up and watching every game on Sunday. I know you, man. You're in here. Be crazy about that. But yeah, that's what DeMeco's praying for. He wants an earlier bye week and he wants less primetime. He won't admit it. He'll go up there, oh, primetime's always good. You know, the team gets excited about it. I don't even think CJ really cares anymore. I think CJ just wants to play. I think that schedule fatigued him. And I think it had to do with his offseason too. He had a lot going on. By request. Probably not as many requests this year and probably like a effort to do less. But yeah. Preston on the soup.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Hopefully primetime game on Thursday will be a good extra bye. Yeah, that is true. Like the layout of Thursday is always interesting because you have the shorter week, but then you get the extra rest. So there's give and take for the Thursday. I'm with you on that when it comes to the Thursday. They're going to play on Thursday. It's just a matter of when, what. I don't know what the most anticipated matchup will be. I mean, maybe it's going to be the usual, the elite teams and the Texans kind of trying to knock on the door. But there is that. If you do travel to games, though, I got to admit this, and this might be a sin around here. Some people might disagree. Maybe your vibe is different than mine, but I think Indy's legit. I think it's a very legit place to go if you're going to watch the Texans on the road. I've never been to Nashville, so I'm not speaking ill of that. I've heard great places, great things about Nashville, but Indianapolis, like at the Combine, everything is downtown. Everything is downtown. Every awesome restaurant. There's a ton of sports bars, and the basketball arena is right there. The concerts right there. The hotels aren't expensive. It's very easy to get from the airport to there. You could basically find somewhere to stay. There's a lot of Airbnbs like downtown that you can stay in. If you are a Texans fan, and the other thing about Indianapolis, like if you were a fan of a team that's not in the division, it's just like whatever. But the Colts make you feel some type of way if you're a Texans fan, and you play them twice a year. A lot of these places are a little bit more expensive. It's always cool to go to New York, but when you go to New York and you go to the stadium, it's out in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot going on. You're not like walking from bar to bar. I think Indianapolis is a nice, affordable, good trip. Sorry, it's just kind of my jam. I like Indianapolis. I might want to try to go to the Indianapolis versus Texans game this year. I'll definitely be at the Combine, but I actually don't hate it. Sanchez on the soup.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate you for rolling through. Broncos or Bills might be primetime. A little Bo Nick, CJ Stroud action. Don't threaten me with a good time. A little Sean Payton versus DeMeco. Don't threaten me with a good time. But yeah, the schedule, they hated that schedule last year, I promise. And it kind of sucked. Like, I'm not one of these media people that's like going to complain about it, but I mean, you kind of forgot what day it was after a while. Between the Hall of Fame game and everything else, it did kind of suck. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Appreciate the direction on the quote about the body transformation. Shout out to Sean Pendergast and Seth Payne, too, my guys. Still talk to them, doing their thing. And shout out to you, the people. And I do mean you people. Talk to y'all tomorrow, SNL 4:00. Be sure to subscribe to that. Be sure to subscribe to this as well. And be sure to get ready for the rookies on Friday. We're going to give you the most in-depth coverage of that possible. Never an off day. Always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Y'all have a good night.
We number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.